Hello, and welcome to the Ask the Pastor video podcast. I'm Kent Bertrand, pastor of the Bridge Church in Gilbert, Arizona. The purpose of this podcast is to answer some of the questions that you have about the Bible and the Christian faith. Before we begin, I always like to remind you that it is never the job of me or any other pastor and spiritual leader to think for you. It is the job of any pastor or spiritual leader to encourage you through the Bible and prayer in the power of the Spirit to think for yourself. Come to our Facebook group page, Bridge Church Arizona, and put your thoughts and comments there about this or any other Ask the Pastor podcast you hear. Today's podcast comes from several people who have asked, with back to school coming, what kind of school should I send my child to? Or do I need to send my child to a Christian school as a Christian? Well, there's a couple of things I have to say about that, but first of all, let me just share some criteria that I use when picking any Christian school for my children. The first is this: how is this school going to impact my child spiritually? You have so many choices: public school, private school, Christian school, charter school. Asking how your children will do spiritually is an important question to ask. Now, for that reason, some people ask that question and conclude they can only send their kids to a Christian school. That's not the conclusion that I draw as a pastor. And that's because as a pastor, I believe that the most important spiritual influence in a child's life is their parents. One time a family came to me and they said, we should come to your church because my child isn't doing well and this may be their last hope. Well, first of all, I can tell you that if I'm somebody's last hope, they're in a lot of trouble. But second of all, it should never be the pastor that's the last hope, because the pastor's with them only a couple hours a week, whereas families are together every day. So therefore, the parents are the one that shape a child's heart and spiritual nature. And that can happen in a lot of different academic environments. So therefore, that first question doesn't necessarily mean you need a Christian school. Second question is this: what are the other factors in the schools around me, like the academic factors and the social factors? Those are really important to ask. As Christians, we need to ask ourselves, how is my child growing in the Lord? And part of that is also asking ourselves, how is my child growing in reading, in math, and in science and learning? How is he building friendships? Those things are important and need to be considered. Now, for some people, that means that they want to go to the public school around them, and for some people that means they don't want to go to the public school around them. And both those answers are fine if you're asking that question and looking at the choices around you. Which leads naturally to our third criteria. What about your child? Who is your child? And what is best for them individually? I cannot stress the importance of this last point. Proverbs 22:6 says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not part from it." Now, many people think that says that if you teach your child the faith, they'll follow it when they get older. But that's not always true. What it really says in the Hebrew in Proverbs is, train up a child in the way he is bent, and when he is old, he will not fall from it. Meaning, if you get to know your child and discover their natural gifts and talents, and you train them in that, they will use those their whole life. That's why, as parents, you want to be a student of your child and get to know them. That's as or more important than even knowing the schools around you. Let me tell you what happened with us. When my first son, Ethan, went into kindergarten, we were going to homeschool him. My wife has a degree in elementary ed, and we wanted to homeschool, so we found great curriculum, academically strong, and we started on that, and we did that all through kindergarten. But then in the first grade, after a couple months, we realized it really wasn't working well to homeschool him anymore. Now, we could have just said, well, this is what we're committed to, so we're going to push through it. But instead, we got to know our child and discovered that he would probably learn better from somebody other than us in a more structured environment with other kids that he could get to know. And so for that reason, we looked around and discovered we were near a really great public school, and so we sent our son there, who has loved it ever since. And now we send our daughter there as well. And that tells you there's no one-size-fits-all for Christians. It depends on you and your child and the schools around you. If you want to talk about this or pray about this personally, as a pastor, I would love to meet with you. You can do it by phone or email, or contact me on my Facebook page, Bridge Church Arizona. I'm Pastor Kent Bertrand. For the Bridge Church, God bless.